In the dim light of my cluttered apartment, I stood among the shattered remnants of my life. Piles of paper cluttered the floor, documents that contained the echoes of dreams once bright, now extinguished. The flickering bulb above me created ghostly shadows, reflecting the darkness that had enveloped my heart. There was no hesitation as I began to sift through the chaos. This was it, the moment I would confront the truth. "My name is Victoria Hale," I began, anchoring myself amidst the turmoil. 38 years old, financial forensic analyst. That was my title, but it felt like a mask I had worn for too long. Today, I would become something else entirely, an avenger. Before me lay the proof of Nathaniel Blackwood's betrayal. With every document I examined, the suffocating weight of realization pressed down on me. His greed had shredded the very fabric of our lives together, and in turn, it had shattered mine. I observed the figures and financial trends that screamed deceit, my analytical mind racing to connect the dots in the web he'd constructed. Nathaniel had always been charismatic, charming even. But behind the allure was a calculating man whose ambition knew no bounds. "They thought I was nothing, but I'm the storm they've underestimated," I muttered, determination coursing through me like fire. This wasn't just about reclaiming what was lost, it was about retribution for the emotional wreckage he had left in his wake. Flashes from our past invaded my thoughts, moments when Nathaniel had consolidated power and trust by subtly manipulating the financial decisions in our joint venture. I'd overlooked the red flags, blinded by love and ambition. Each memory stung, sharpening my resolve. I wasn't just a victim lost in her own grief, I was a woman poised to reclaim her narrative. Suddenly, the phone rang, cutting through the veil of my thoughts. It was Thomas, an old colleague from my time with Nathaniel. "Victoria, I've heard what's happening. You need to be cautious." There was a weight in his tone, a concern that only fueled my focus on the task ahead. "Cautious?" I replied, my voice laced with a hint of defiance. He should be the one worried. I shared my findings, detailing the discrepancies that I had unearthed. I could hear a flicker of admiration in Thomas's silence, igniting a spark within me. He won't know what hit him. This time, I'm the one in control. Returning to the pile of documents, I began to map out my strategy. I would gather evidence, papers to expose Nathaniel's fraudulent schemes. I would utilize every skill I had honed as a forensic analyst to navigate this dark maze. The thrill surged within me as I contemplated the opportunities for retribution that lay ahead. It was time to embrace my strength and resilience, traits I had buried under layers of trust and betrayal. I would no longer be the woman cast aside, I would rise to claim what was rightfully mine. The storm within me brewed stronger, ready to unleash its fury upon the very man who had thought he could destroy me. As the clock continued ticking, I knew I was on the precipice of a transformation. I was not merely reclaiming my life, I was preparing to dismantle the walls Nathaniel had built on my sacrifices, one calculated move at a time. The future was mine to shape, and the retribution was just beginning. Flashes of the past invaded my mind, blurring the harsh present with the sweet, deceptive snapshots of what once was. Nathaniel and I had been partners in every sense of the word, partners in love and partners in business. In the early days, it felt like we were building an empire together, each triumph celebrated with laughter and promises for a future that sparkled just beyond the horizon. I remembered the warmth of his hand over mine as we huddled over our first financial projections, the excitement palpable in the air. The blueprints of our startup sprawled across the table, inked with hopes and dreams. We shared long nights filled with passionate discussions about our vision, dreams where we saw our company flourish into something that meant more than just profit, it was going to be our legacy. Yet, even in those moments of euphoria, Nathaniel had a knack for deflecting attention from troubling issues. I could now see the ways he had undermined my contributions. How casually he'd swept aside my email suggestions, branding them too idealistic or unfounded. Each dismissal was a brick laid upon the walls he built between us. I had accepted those dismissals, drowning them out with the intoxicating promise of our shared future. As time passed, I noticed seeds of discontent slipping into our once harmonious partnership. The celebratory requisition of funds began to feel like a compulsion for him rather than a collaborative decision. I'd suggest spending wisely, target investments with potential, while he seemed bent on expansion without regard for the financial ramifications. When I voiced concern, he would smile, a disarming charm that momentarily soothed my instincts, reassuring me that he had it all under control. "What's life without a little risk?" he'd say, his voice smooth and melodic, a remedy for my doubts. I fell for it every time, allowing my trust to cloud my judgment. It wasn't until we were embroiled in chaos that I realized how expertly he had manipulated our journey together. I could recall one moment distinctly. We were at a lavish launch party for our new product, celebrating an impressive milestone. I stood by the large windows, gazing out at the city skyline with a heady sense of accomplishment. "We did this together," I told him, turning to face Nathaniel, joy lighting up my features. His gaze was distant, more focused on the guests than the weight of our success. "Together, yes," he replied, his trademark smirk returning. But that smile felt different, it was more like a mask. Those early successes masked a growing divide, one I refused to acknowledge. Days turned into months, and I found myself working late nights, buried in spreadsheets, while Nathaniel swirled among high-stakes meetings and sultry galas. I became the diligent analyst while he took on the role of the charismatic figurehead, and with each passing day, my presence in decision-making weakened. Tension began to simmer. As the numbers started to shift, I began to notice discrepancies, endless expenses without receipts, profits that seemed too good to be true. Every time I broached the subject with him, he laughed it off. "You're too focused on the little things, Vic, trust the process." I had wanted to believe him. After all, we had built this venture together. But as I stood there now, thinking back to those moments, reality began to form from the fog of my emotions. I'd ignored the signs of deceit, the way he'd pocketed unfinished projects and claimed them as his own. Those dismissed emails, the casual brush-off of my concerns, they had all woven into a tapestry of betrayal that I had failed to see unfolding. In those quiet evenings at the office, lost in the numbers, I had felt a creeping isolation grow around my heart. Every time he dismissed my insights, it chipped away at my confidence. I'd invested not just my knowledge but my soul into this partnership. When he eclipsed my role as co-founder with a singular vision of self-interest, I had stood helpless, frozen as I tried to convince myself it was all in my head. The culmination of deceit came crashing down upon me when my friend Carla innocently revealed a conversation she'd overheard. Nathaniel was planning to move forward with an expansion I had vehemently advised against, completely without my knowledge. Anger and fear surged through me, and everything shifted in an instant. Suddenly, the complete picture began to crystallize. The prosperous facade narrowed to a single moment of clarity. I was being shut out entirely. Even now, what struck me the most was the erosion of trust, how he had so easily crafted a scenario in which he felt justified in betraying everything we had built. The betrayal cut deeper than mere finances. It was about love, loyalty, and our shared dreams. I made a vow then, ignited by the sense of violation coursing through my veins, I would take back that which he thought he had taken from me forever. The very foundation of our partnership became my weapon in this complicated battle. Refocusing on the task at hand, I began compiling everything I had uncovered, formulating a strategy that would not only expose him but allow me to carve out my rightful place in the narrative. I would trace every transaction, dissect every anomaly, and piece together a narrative that would not only reclaim my dignity but would finally serve as a testament to the truth beneath the layers of deceit. I shifted my thoughts, my resolve hardening. Nathaniel had underestimated my strength, and I would show him just how deep his betrayal ran. The calm before the storm had settled upon me, but soon, very soon, the tempest would break free from within. As I sat on the edge of my bed, papers scattered around me like fallen leaves in autumn, a wicked intensity coursed through my veins. Purpose was transforming my raw emotion into a finely tuned blade. I wouldn't just react to Nathaniel's betrayal, I would craft a plan that would cut through the layers of deceit he had carefully constructed. I took a deep breath, letting the air settle within me, and began to outline my strategy. First, I would need solid evidence. The gaping holes in our financials begged to be filled, and I had the privilege of knowing them inside out. I recalled the documents I'd kept from my investigations, anomalies waiting patiently to be unveiled. I rummaged through the chaos of my desk and pulled out my laptop, fingers dancing with urgency over the keyboard as I logged on. I would comb through the financial records, decipher hidden accounts, and unravel the narrative he had created, a narrative that could no longer remain shrouded in shadows. My mind raced as I opened folders, the glow of the screen illuminating the contours of my determination. I knew that Nathaniel's professional aura hid a malignant heart. His charm could blind others, but I was going to strip away his facade layer by layer. I felt like an architect plotting the blueprints of a grand structure. Every detail mattered. I opened the company's online financial system. My fingers hovered over the mouse, adrenaline thrumming in my chest. "You turned us into a ticking bomb, Nathaniel," I whispered to the empty room, channeling my frustration into focus. "And now, I will disarm it." I meticulously documented every discrepancy I found. There it was, a suspicious transaction dated 3 months prior, filed under a vague category that made my gut tighten. My instincts flared. This was my first breadcrumb. It would lead me deeper into his labyrinth of lies. I marveled at how easy it felt to slip into this role, the investigator, the hunter tracking down a corrupt prey. Weeks passed as I dove deeper into the abyss, navigating the economic minefield Nathaniel had laid just for me. Each night, I analyzed data, piecing together the puzzle one fragment at a time. I reached out to trusted contacts, drawing on their expertise to help me establish a clearer picture. I could feel a network forming, a quiet alliance against the man I once called my partner. Together, we'd become a force he wouldn't see coming. I felt my resolve strengthen as I approached those who held the truth. Each conversation was like taking a piece of ammunition from an arsenal, the reports that revealed Nathaniel's extravagant expenditures hidden under the guise of business development. The fabrications layered upon themselves, feeding a monster I was determined to expose. It was during one of these sleepless nights, with research and caffeine coursing through my system, that I formulated a final strategy. I would confront Nathaniel during our next board meeting. I envisioned him sitting with his typical air of confidence, smirking as he presented our company's latest initiatives. What he would not anticipate would be my emotional ascendance, fueled by the certainty of the truth armed with undeniable facts. I would bring along supporting documents, a visual narrative that showcased the discrepancies, clear evidence that would not only illuminate his betrayal but would lay bare the reality of a man who had failed us all. I found comfort in knowing that I would not be alone in this confrontation. My allies, seated quietly in the room, would assist in unveiling the true nature of my evidence. I replayed my speech over and over in my head, crafting a way to deliver it with clarity and conviction. "Nathaniel, you've betrayed not just me but everyone who believed in your vision." My heart raced as I practiced this line in the mirror, imagining his flinching expression meeting my determined gaze. The thought of standing before him, weaponized with the truth, sent a thrill of adrenaline coursing through me. I was no longer the complacent partner. I had become a sentinel, armed with the facts he had sought to bury. On the eve of the meeting, I gathered all the papers, each one a testament to the string of deceptions tied to his name, financial records, emails, testimonies from former colleagues who had been pushed into silence. I double-checked everything, ensuring I was ready to disarm the ticking time bomb that was Nathaniel once and for all. As I lay in bed that night, sleep evaded me. I could feel the soft hum of anticipation vibrating in my bones, a stark contrast to the earlier dread that had clouded my heart. I had come full circle, rising from the depths of betrayal to reclaim my narrative, forging a new destiny with every click of my keyboard. When dawn broke and sunlight streamed through my window, I felt weightless. A sense of liberation brushed against me, heralding the storm that would soon break. I tightly grasped the stack of papers in my hand. The battle was upon us, and within me stirred an inferno ready to expose Nathaniel for the fraud he truly was. Tomorrow, the storm will unleash, I whispered, a sense of peace settling over me as I prepared for the confrontation that would change everything. The morning sun bathed my apartment in a warm glow as I slipped into my navy blazer, feeling its snug fit solidify my resolve. With each button I fastened, I steeled myself for the battle ahead. Today was not just another day at the office, it was an opportunity to reclaim my life and expose the long-hidden treachery of Nathaniel. As I approached the office, the sounds of the bustling environment around me seemed to fade into the background. Familiar faces marked the halls, but today, I felt like a specter haunting my own life. Nathaniel's tall figure stood in the conference room, radiating confidence, unaware that the storm would soon uproot his carefully constructed world. I paused outside the door, taking a deep breath to settle my racing heart. This was my moment, an inflection point where I would shift from a passive participant to an active agent of change. You're not just fighting for yourself today, I reminded myself as I pushed open the door. Inside, I found my allies Carla, Thomas, and Jacob already seated, their expressions a mixture of support and anxiety. A nod from each was the grounding force I needed, fueling my determination. Nathaniel will be here shortly, I said, gripping the neatly organized folder that contained the evidence of his betrayal. Let's get ready. The door swung open, and Nathaniel sauntered in, radiating his typical bravado. Victoria. I'm glad to see you on board with the latest projections, he exclaimed, the smugness in his voice grating on my nerves. Those projections come at a cost, Nathaniel, I replied, my tone steady, though my heart hammered in my chest. We need to talk about the financial records. Financial records? Are you joking? He laughed, but there was an edge of uncertainty creeping into his voice. I'm in charge here. No, you're in charge of deceit, I shot back, the adrenaline surging through me. What about the multiple discrepancies in your expense reports? Like the lavish dinner marked as a business development expense that only you attended? His confident demeanor flickered, but he quickly retorted, it was a necessary meeting. I slid a printed email across the table. The restaurant confirmed it was just you, and no business was discussed. You've been using company funds for personal gain. The silence grew thick as Nathaniel's complexion shifted from irritation to anger. You think that flimsy piece of paper is enough to take me down? It isn't flimsy at all. It's a testament to the web of lies you've spun, lies that put this entire venture at risk, I declared, my voice unwavering. My allies shifted, sensing the tension crackling in the air. Loyalists in this room trust me, Victoria. You don't even have a leg to stand on, he snapped, desperation leaking through his bravado. They deserve to know the truth about your choices, I insisted, now drawing strength from the resolve of those behind me. I glanced to Carla and Jacob, preparing for our shift in power. It was clear Nathaniel had fallen off his pedestal and the tide was turning. Let's put this to a vote, Carla suggested, her voice steady. Do we stick with Nathaniel, or do we stand together for transparency? My heart thundered as I scanned the room, catching the hesitant yet reflective expressions on my colleagues' faces. It was the declaration of allegiance, and I prayed my allies would back me. Victoria speaks for all of us, Thomas added, his eyes now steely with determination. This isn't about loyalty to one person, it's about loyalty to our vision and integrity. Nathaniel took a deep breath, his smugness faltering under our collective gaze. You shouldn't be so dramatic, he shot back, frustration mingling with fear. Not dramatic, Nathaniel. Real, I replied. You've compromised everything for your own selfish motives. This isn't just about you anymore, it impacts every one of us. Jacob leaned forward. You need to be held accountable for your actions. Your decisions have consequences. The silence stretched thin, his facade crumbled as he searched for control, but it was slipping through his fingers, just like every promise he made. You're all being influenced, he stammered, a hint of panic in his voice. You really think you can take me down? Yes, I stated firmly, because we have the facts, more than enough to back us up. Nathaniel, we want to see the financial statements and ledger books, Carla interjected. We need a full audit to expose your fraud. The tremor in Nathaniel's voice betrayed him. There's no need for that. You're only hurting the company, hurting your own careers. But the fight was gone from his tone. He had become cornered, and now the fear was evident. Actually, we're protecting it, I replied, emboldened by the shifting dynamic. This confrontation is exactly what we needed. You can't hide behind lies anymore. His shoulders sagged as he realized he would no longer dictate the narrative. The room buzzed with unspoken solidarity. My allies and I stood as a united front, emboldened against the monster we once trusted. I gestured to the stack of evidence in front of me. This is our chance to strip away the deception that has tainted this company. We deserve to rise from the ruins of your mismanagement. Each passing second felt charged with purpose. I could see Nathaniel wrestling with defeat, and it invigorated me to push forward. This was more than just about justice for myself, it was about reclaiming our future together. Who stands with me? I asked, my voice echoing through the room. Who believes we deserve better? Hands began to rise around the table, first Carla, then Thomas, finally Jacob. The pattern swelled like a crescendo, and I could feel the warmth of hope filling the air. It was exhilarating. Nathaniel's arrogance had led him to this moment of reckoning. The storm was upon us, and I knew deep down that we would fortify ourselves against its wrath. Together, we would not only dismantle his reign but also reclaim our destiny, starting right here, right now. As the hands of my allies rose in solidarity, the atmosphere in the conference room shifted palpably. It felt as if the air had thickened with pressure, charging us with collective determination. Nathaniel's gaze darted between each of us, desperation etching deeper lines on his face. Silence enveloped the room, but behind it lurked an electrifying undercurrent, a shared understanding of the battle we were ready to wage. Look, let's not be hasty, Nathaniel began, attempting to regain some semblance of control. His voice was strained, underscoring his vulnerability. This isn't just about financials, it's about trust. You've all worked hard, and I've supported your growth. Why throw that away on a whim? A whim? I echoed, incredulity lacing my tone. You've betrayed our trust, Nathaniel. You've manipulated numbers and misled your own team. How can we move forward under your leadership when you've shown us that your interests lie only with yourself? The words flowed with conviction, fueled by my simmering anger. Nathaniel shifted uncomfortably in his chair, and in that moment, I realized how utterly unprepared he was for our collective uprising. You don't understand the complexities of running this company. I have made decisions for the greater good. The greater good. I tightened my grip around the stack of papers, fighting the impulse to laugh at his twisted reasoning. The only greater good you've served is your own, Nathaniel. It's time for you to face the music. I exchanged glances with Carla, whose steady nod reminded me we were in this together. The same conviction that had driven me to gather evidence propelled us all forward. We demand to see those records. We deserve to be involved in restoring this company's integrity. Without trust among us, how can we function? Nathaniel's facade crumbled further, revealing vulnerability beneath. You want an audit? Fine, but you don't realize the consequences. This will affect all of us. His voice was desperate now, almost pleading. Then let's discuss those consequences, I stated, unwavering. What's more damaging? The risk of uncovering your deceit or letting you continue to manipulate us all under the guise of leadership. My words hung in the air, a sharp challenge that demanded response. I turned to each of my colleagues, their faces set in agreements that radiated strength. We were a wall of unity, ready to challenge the very foundation Nathaniel had built his career upon. The atmosphere thickened with tension as silence descended again. Finally, Jacob spoke up, his voice steady. We know the risks, Nathaniel, and we're prepared to face them. Our integrity is worth the fight. We refuse to let your mismanagement define our futures. Nathaniel's expression morphed into one of frustration and anger. You think you can oust me just like that? I built this company. You owe your careers and stability to my decisions. Stability? Carla interjected, her voice rising now. Your decisions put everything at risk. We've been walking on eggshells while you line your pockets with our trust. If you're willing to sacrifice everything for personal gain, then the true instability lies within you. The fury in her words broke through whatever semblance of authority he clung to. Nathaniel's mouth opened and closed as he searched for a comeback but found nothing to save his crumbling confidence. Enough, he finally shouted, voice cracking. You think you can do this better than me? You think you know what's best for the company? I leaned forward, my heart pounding. It's not about knowing what's best, it's about wanting what's right. You are betraying this company's values for your gain. This is about restoring our mission and our shared vision. He huffed, a mix of anger and disbelief coursing through him. You will regret this, he warned, but I sensed a crack in his bravado. Regret could only come from ignorance, I replied firmly. But we're done being ignorant. We're taking the reins back. At that moment, a buzz from my phone interrupted the rising tide of emotions. I glanced down to see a notification lighting up the screen, an email notification from the accounting department. I opened it hurriedly and felt my breath hitch. It's the audit report, I said, my voice slicing through the tension. Open it, said Carla. I hesitated, nervous energy bubbling in my stomach. But I knew this was the moment we had been preparing for. With shaky hands, I clicked to open the email, revealing the attached document. My eyes raced over the lines of figures, each one presenting shocking truths. Here it is, I announced, clearing my throat. Incorporated were discrepancies matching the irregularities I discovered. I looked up to face Nathaniel, my expression resolute. You've been stealing from this company, Nathaniel. Just look at this report. His eyes widened, disbelief flashing across his features. I scanned the document, pointing out line after line that supported our claims. Missing funds, inflated expenses. You've drained our resources while pretending to be the savior. The tension was palpable, every eye in the room glued to me as I read the damning evidence. This is the change we fight for. We hold you accountable. With that final proclamation, the tides turned decisively in our favor. I could see the doubts swirling in Nathaniel's mind, the slow realization that his reign was unraveling before him. He struggled to regain some semblance of composure, but the weight of the evidence hung heavily in the air. You won't get away with this, he muttered, his voice almost a whisper now. I took a steadying breath, pushing my triumph down to focus on the bigger picture. It's not about getting away or not. It's about choosing to stand for what's right. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for this company, and we will not allow you to endanger it any further. I tossed the printed audit report in front of him, the papers landing with a resonant thud on the table. I could feel the surge of courage gathering within us as we all leaned into this victory together. Are you ready to lead with integrity? I asked Nathaniel, my eyes boring into his. Or are you going to continue this charade? He opened his mouth to speak again, but no words came forth. Instead, he glared as if trying to intimidate. But faced with the unity we had forged, his anger felt impotent. In that pivotal moment, I felt an undeniable shift. It was no longer about Nathaniel, it was about us, about the company we had fought to protect, the values we were resurrecting. I turned away from him, facing Carla, Thomas, and Jacob, their faces illuminated with determination and anticipation of what lay ahead. We're in this together, I said with newfound strength. Let's ensure that honesty and transparency guide our future. A ripple of agreement swept through my allies, reinforcing the intense power of unity. Nathaniel had underestimated us all along, believing he could manipulate us, and now we would teach him a lesson, not only for himself, but for every whisper of doubt he'd ever cast on our loyalty. Together, we would forge a new path forward, one built on trust and accountability, reclaiming not just the company but also the faith we had in each other. The storm was upon us, but we were ready to weather it, united and unbreakable. The silence in the room was palpable as we gathered our resolve. Nathaniel's expression, a blend of anger and disbelief, painted a stark contrast to the camaraderie swelling among us. This standoff was more than a confrontation, it felt like a rebirth, where we were reclaiming our purpose. Nathaniel, I began, my tone steady despite the charge in the air. We're not just calling for transparency. We're taking this to the board this afternoon to request an official audit. Your time at the helm is over. Fear dimmed the arrogance in his eyes for the first time. You really think they'll back you? A group of disgruntled subordinates trying to overthrow their leader? His voice dripped with sarcasm, desperately trying to regain control. They will once they see the evidence, I replied, stepping closer. This is not just about us, it's about every employee who feels the impact of your greed. We deserve the truth. Carla chimed in, her voice unwavering. We stand for honesty, Nathaniel. Your actions no longer reflect the spirit of this company. Do you really think this is just some game? You assume you can unravel what I've built? Nathaniel countered, but the desperation was encroaching. It's not a game, it's about restoration, I asserted. The core of trust you've shattered must be rebuilt. As I spoke, the tension in the room thickened, our collective tenacity hardening like armor. Nathaniel sighed, weighing the gravity of our resolve. You'll regret this, he spat, but I sensed his bravado fading. Regret isn't an option anymore, I countered. And we're prepared for whatever lies ahead. Our integrity is worth the fight. With quick nods and shared glances of determination, we moved toward the boardroom. Each step felt like reclaiming ground lost in a battle overshadowed by deception. The boardroom awaited us, a venue where too many decisions had been obscured by Nathaniel's mismanagement. Today would be different. Inside, the board members were seated, a mix of curiosity and apprehension shadowing their faces. This was our chance to turn the tide. Thank you for meeting with us, I started, positioning myself at the head of the table. What we're about to present is crucial for the future of this company. Nathaniel, I continued, looking directly at him, we're here to propose a full audit, an exploration of the mismanagement that has plagued us all. He shifted in his seat, unease rooting in his expression. I'm not sure what accusations you're making, but... I cut him off, my fingers tapping the paper stacked before me. These are not mere accusations. They're documented facts. Here are discrepancies in the financial records, evidence of missing funds, all of it, tied to your leadership. The silence throbbed as the board members leaned in, taking note of my determination and Nathaniel's discomfort. Do you believe in the future of this company? I asked directly. If so, allow us to take action to restore what's been lost. A soft murmur floated through the room, and one board member, an older gentleman with glasses, finally spoke up. You're saying this to undermine Nathaniel? The point isn't about undermining, I asserted, my voice firm. It's about accountability and rebuilding trust among us all. Nathaniel, recognizing a crack in his influence, attempted a comeback. This is reckless. You think you can manage this company without my leadership? I took a breath, unyielding. You have shown us that your leadership jeopardizes its integrity. We need a new direction, our team deserves better. It wasn't just an argument, it was a rallying cry. I leaned into the intensity of the moment, gesturing to the assembled board members. We will present the evidence today. If we are truly a team, we will stand together for the values that define us. I felt a ripple of solidarity, glancing at Carla, Thomas, and Jacob as they nodded in agreement. The moment was electric, no longer just a personal fight but one that belonged to everyone in this room. The evidence is compelling, I continued, gesturing with purpose. We need your support to move forward and hold Nathaniel accountable. If we don't, the consequences will be felt by us all. With a deep breath, I unfolded the audit report, exposing the glaring evidence of betrayal. The audit will reveal the truth. Let's embrace it instead of hiding from it. Nathaniel sat stiffly, his face transformed with realization. His facade of confidence was rapidly deteriorating under the weight of our collective resolve. As I began detailing each piece of evidence, Nathaniel's voice cracked, frustration spilling out. You're destroying everything. You don't realize what you're throwing away. But I didn't falter. What's being destroyed is the illusion of your leadership. It's time for honesty, time to rebuild, and time to return to a culture of trust. As my words echoed through the boardroom, I noticed board members exchanging glances, nodding. The tide was shifting, I could feel it. We weren't just advocating for ourselves, we were championing the integrity of the entire company. And as I finished presenting, a series of murmurs swept through the room, a tide of support growing stronger. In that moment, it was more than a call for an audit. It was a declaration of a collective purpose renewed and a commitment to the future of our shared mission. The storm was only beginning, and we wouldn't back down. Will you support us in this endeavor? I asked, my voice steady and clear. Will you help us reclaim our company's integrity? The head of the board nodded slowly, one member after another following suit, leaning in towards us. Yes, we will take this seriously, one woman affirmed, and relief washed over my allies. Nathaniel closed his eyes briefly, realizing the consequence of our unity. Get ready for the fallout, he mumbled, but determination surged within me. I met his gaze unwaveringly. This was just the start of our fight. Together, we were not just reclaiming a company, we were reclaiming our future. And that future was filled with hope and resolute strength, bound together by the wisdom of integrity and the shared belief that we could overcome anything, united and unbreakable. The boardroom buzzed with anxious conversations, the decision weighing heavily on everyone's minds. My heart raced, a mix of exhilaration and apprehension coursed through me. I stood with Carla, Thomas, and Jacob, feeling the gravity of what we had just set into motion. Shifting glances among board members spoke louder than words, underscoring our resolve. We'll reconvene on Monday to discuss the audit logistics, the head of the board announced, his voice steady and authoritative. We appreciate your courage in bringing these issues to light. Nathaniel's expression morphed into one of outrage. You're making a monumental mistake, he barked, his voice edged with disbelief. This will ruin everything we've built. Do you honestly think anyone will support you when the shit hits the fan? Or it could strengthen our resolve, I countered, the conviction pouring from me. If we're honest about our failures, we can regain the trust of our employees and clients alike. Ignoring the problem only makes it fester. The air grew tense, the board members now casting wary eyes toward Nathaniel. He was losing his grip. I leaned in, my voice calm yet firm. Are we truly prepared to compromise everything on the lie of a few mismanaged figures? The fallout of ignorance is far greater than the risks of transparency. Transparency? Ha, he sneered, desperation evident in his tone. You're throwing away your careers on a witch hunt. No, I replied. This is about accountability, not a witch hunt. Leadership should be held to the highest standard. That's what this fight represents. His anger festered, but I pressed on, unwilling to let him reclaim the narrative. This isn't solely a personal battle. It's about every single person who has invested their time and trust in this company. We owe it to them to salvage our integrity. A slight murmur of agreement hummed through the room. I felt the tide shifting as eyes narrowed on Nathaniel. The board members were starting to see through the veil of his bravado. Do we stand to be shackled by fear and deception, or will we rise and be the company that stands resilient? I challenged, my gaze steady. Finally, the head of the board spoke up, his resolve firm. We're committed to conducting this audit. We won't shy away from the truth. A wave of relief washed over me, and I felt the weight of our decision echoing in the room. The board members had aligned with us, choosing honesty over subterfuge. I exchanged a glance with Carla and Thomas, their expressions mirroring my determination. This wasn't just a fleeting victory, It was a new chapter for our company. Hope surged within me as I thought of the culture we could build, one based on transparency, where every voice mattered. But just know, Nathaniel spat, his face darkening, if you think this audit will go unnoticed, prepare for the repercussions. You think this is a game? I raised my chin. Honestly, it's you who has treated this like a game. The stakes are far too high for us to back down now. A sense of strength enveloped my allies as we stood resolute against Nathaniel's threats. I understood that the storm wasn't just upon us, it was brewing inside him, a tempest fueled by his fading power, and we would learn to navigate it together. Prepare for fallout? We learn to weather storms, I stated defiantly. That's what makes us unbreakable. Together, we will move forward toward a renewed vision. Leaving the boardroom, I felt a rush of anticipation. We were committed to pushing through whatever challenges lay ahead. From this moment forward, we would embrace the truth, confront any repercussions, and emerge stronger, as a united front. In the days to come, Nathaniel would no doubt fight to retain his influence, likely using every tactic to undermine our decision. But I was ready. Our shared determination was a force that couldn't be easily subdued. As we walked out, the camaraderie among us solidified into something fiercely potent. Each step felt like reclaiming ground lost, each conversation a pledge to uphold our values in the face of adversity. The road ahead would be anything but smooth, but together, we were stronger. We emerged with renewed purpose and clarity, standing tall against the storm swirling around us. The struggle was just beginning, but as long as we maintained our integrity and shared vision, I knew we would prevail. Together, we were not just reclaiming our company, we were forging a future defined by empowerment, resilience, and unwavering unity. With certainty, I believed that we could weather any storm that came our way. United, we were truly unbreakable.